Hi, my name is Kim Kramer, and I am the Regional Coordinator with Right From the Start. And today I'm going to present a couple of different issues that are not commonly talked about, but real important to consider while you're pregnant and while your infant is very, very young. So to start with, we all get pregnant and we have these images of what our babies are going to be. And they're going to be smiley and happy. And they're going to all act like the Gerber baby does on all of the commercials. And all those happy babies for diapers that are crawling around and giggling and smiling. And a lot of times that is true with babies. But the truth is that it's really hard to parent a young baby. And some babies cry a lot. They cry and cry and cry. And it's very difficult to handle it because as parents, we're already tired. We may be working. We may have other children in the home. We might have some stress in our relationship. And just at the time of the day that we are the most tired is when babies that are going to cry a lot start crying. And this is called period of purple crying. And it's a period of time that babies, there's nothing wrong with them physically. Now, let me start out by saying that if you have a baby that's suddenly starting to cry a whole bunch and you're not sure why, you can always check and should always check with your pediatrician or your nurse practitioner or WIC or any of the clinics that you go to make sure that there's nothing physical going on with the baby that we need to deal with. So what typically will happen is things seem to be going okay. And as the day goes on and it starts to be 4 or 5 o'clock, the baby starts crying a whole bunch. And you feed the baby and you change the baby's diaper and you hold the baby and still the baby cries. And the phone is ringing and somebody else is knocking on the door. Somebody else needs something and the baby continues to cry. And no matter what you do, this baby keeps on crying. And this is called period of purple crying. It's when babies cry for hours on end. And no matter what we do, it doesn't seem to be helping. And we need to be prepared that we may have a baby that is experiencing this period of purple crying. And so what happens is somewhere, anytime after birth or within the first couple of weeks, the baby will start to have these periods of just crying and crying and crying. And it peaks somewhere around 2 to 3 months that the baby does it a little bit more. And then it starts to be a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less until finally you're not having this period of purple crying. But we need to be prepared for it. We need to know, what are we going to do if this baby is crying and crying and it's so hard to deal with? And sometimes we even think that the baby is mad at us. And we recheck their diaper. We try to feed them again. We burp them, we rock them, and still the baby cries. And so what can happen is we can become so upset and so angry and so frustrated that we do something that can have terrible, terrible, terrible results. And it's called shaken baby syndrome. And it's so fast and it's so easy to have happen. So I'm going to demonstrate to you what happens. The baby's taking a while. Let me see here if I can get the baby to... Let's try again. There we go. So here I am. I am trying to soothe this baby. I'm loving it. I've checked its diaper. And still, it's crying. And an hour later, it's still crying. And I am so tired. And I'm so frustrated. And I don't know what to do. Because I want the baby to stop crying. And I can't do anything. And all of a sudden, I can just look at the baby. And without even thinking about it, say, will you just stop? And in those 4 words, the baby stopped crying. And it's a horrible thing because this baby that I love so much stopped crying because I damaged its brain. I got so frustrated and angry and I didn't know what to do, and I shook it without even meaning to. And if you look here, all these parts of the brain are now permanently damaged. In that 3 or 4 seconds, the baby's going to be blind, have trouble walking, that's this part of the brain, have trouble talking, and maybe even die. Because what happens is, you and I have brains, let me lay this down. You and I have brains that are like grapes if we touch them. If you opened up my head and touched my brain, it would feel like a grape, like a nice plump grape. But for infants, their brains are still growing and their brains are still forming. And if we were to touch their brain, it would be more like Jell-O. And what happens to Jell-O when you mush it up? It never goes back the way it's supposed to. And that's what happens to infants. Their brains never recover to where it was before they had this shaken incident. And so we want to prevent this. I think that all of us have probably heard of babies that have been handicapped their whole life just because of one shaking incident. So there's a couple things that we can do to deal with this. We need to figure out for ourselves, what are we going to do if our baby is one of these babies that is going through a period of purple crying? And believe me, it is hard. It is not easy to deal with. And we need to give ourselves permission to recognize that we need to be away from our baby, even if it's just for a few minutes. And we need to give ourselves permission that if we're going through that and we are feeling so frustrated, it is okay to go into the other room, lay the baby down on its back without a blanket, because that's the safe way for babies to lay down, and leave the room for a few minutes. Maybe go listen to some music, light a candle, open the window and get some fresh air. Whatever it is for you that helps to calm you down, it's okay. The baby is okay. You've already checked with the doctor. You've already checked its diaper. You know that your baby has already eaten. And the baby is going to cry. It's going to cry and cry and cry. You have already held it and rocked it and done all of the soothing that you possibly could. And it's not helping, and it is okay to lay the baby down. The other thing that you have permission to do, and that you need to give yourself permission to do, is to call for help, is to figure out who it is in your circle of people that you trust and care about that can come and help you. Maybe it's your mother, maybe not. Maybe it's your sister, maybe not. Maybe a friend, maybe a neighbor, maybe your grandmother. But it is okay to call and say, I am exhausted. The baby is crying. I actually feel like I'm getting overly frustrated with the baby. Can you come and help me? Because I need a break from this. Because certainly admitting to people around to us that we need a little bit of help is better than shaking a baby. And they're more than happy to help us with these things. Nobody wants to hurt your baby. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to shake my baby. It happens just in an incident, in just one instant. And then forever, you're going to have regrets. And the baby's going to be forever affected, or perhaps even die from the injury. So I want you to be considering, who can you call for help if you're in this situation? You've laid the baby down, the baby's still crying. You need more than just that few minutes of laying the baby down. You need somebody to come and either let you leave, or that you can take the baby to them in the car seat, and you need some help. The other thing that you need to consider is that it is not unusual for this to happen with baby caregivers. So we need to think about, who are we going to leave the baby with? It is very common when a baby is experiencing shaken baby syndrome that it is the boyfriend of the mom who was caring for the baby that shook the baby, not because he wanted to hurt them, but because he didn't know his strength in shaking. and didn't understand baby care. We all have friends we know that have short fuses. Maybe that's not a good person to leave the baby with. So when you need to leave the baby, somebody to take care of him or her while you're running errands or going to your own doctor appointment or working or just needing a little bit of a break, think about who you are leaving the baby with and make sure that this is a safe person to leave the baby with. And if it is not, then find an alternative. There is always an alternative. In the worst case scenario, you could call emergency. Just say, I can't do this anymore. And they will help you to find help. You can call, Help for West Virginia, that 211 number as well, if you're needing help with support. So the take-home message for this is babies are going to cry. Some babies are going to cry more than what you can even imagine. And if you've ever been around a baby that cries a lot, you know how frustrating it is. If you're getting to that point that you are so frustrated that you're starting to feel that you might even lose control, that's the time to very gently go to your safe sleep place for the baby, lay the baby on their back in a crib, and walk away for a little while. And do something for yourself that will calm you down. Go back and check on the baby again and walk away. And if this is going on for a while and you're not able to get yourself to a place that you feel like you're able to handle it yet, call for help. Call somebody that you trust that can help you with the baby at that point. Now, the other thing that I want to talk to you about is, remember how I've been talking about that the baby needs to lay on its back. So this is all babies need to lay on their back. And what they have found is that sometimes when babies are laying on they found that there's a higher rate of sudden infant death syndrome or sudden unexplained infant death syndrome, SUID, if you see that, for babies who lay on their backs and on their stomachs and on their sides while they sleep. Now, your mom and your grandparents, they were told by their doctors to make sure that the baby lays on their belly. But we've discovered that when babies lay on their belly, we think they're breathing in too much of the air that they're breathing out, and they can't move their head away. And so when that happens, they can stop breathing. And let me show you something. So what this picture shows right here is over here is a baby laying on its back, and you can see how its airway stays open. When the baby is on its stomach, it actually closes off the airway even a little bit. So we want the baby to lay on their back on a firm surface without anything loose in the crib with them at all. No blankets, no toys, no bumper pads, on their back, not in bed with anybody else while they're sleeping, but in the same room as whoever is caring for them, whether it's you or if you're away and somebody else is caring for the baby. They should be in the same room for 6 months to a year. And that can avoid some of that sudden unexplained infant death syndrome, where you wake up in the morning and the baby's not breathing anymore. So these are the two takeaways that I wanted to give to you to think about as you're preparing to have your baby and as you're taking care of the baby. Think about what kind of things can you do to help quickly restore yourself, quickly get you to relax, to calm down, to think, okay, the baby's going through this period. And like I said before, it could be lighting a candle, listening to music, taking a big gulp of fresh air through the window or from the porch, calling somebody to help you, giving yourself a big glass of water, trying to get as much rest as you can. Maybe what you need to do is take a shower or a bath to help settle you down a little bit. And remember, always, always, always be careful about who you're leaving your children with. If they have a short fuse, maybe they're good friends, but they're not the friends who should be watching your baby, because you want to make sure that nobody in that instant shakes their baby, your baby, and hurts their brain. So thank you for listening. I hope that you have a successful time with your infant. And if you have any questions, feel free to call Right from the Start or any of your other providers to help you out. Thank you very much.